What Really Happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, where you'll find out what the Fukushima's going on.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the What Really Happened show. Today is 6/10 of 2020. Good afternoon from Western Montana. I am your host, Keith Rogers, normally of Perception Management, which airs on Sundays at 8 p.m. Montana time. I'm sitting in from Mr. Rivero. On board, we have David from Crucial Nonsense. And
howdy.
There you go. And if you'd like to help support the network there, please call 1-800-724-2719, extension 3, and press extension 1 from 1 to 6 p.m., Monday through Thursday. And of course, if you'd like to donate by mail, send cash, check, or money order payable to RBN at 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas. And if you want, you can send me a bag of dog food. Anyway, hey, you know what? I get to talking to a lot of people there, and I want to start the show off here with something which is pertinent or germane to what's going on right now. And so, as far as this Black Lives Matter stuff, 2,000 years ago, Jesus ended the debate of which lives matter. He died for all mankind. We're seeing a lot of this constant apologetic things, looking at Nancy Pelosi. I think it was like 9 minutes or something like that, in a standoff of her sitting there like a mummy, which is almost just like her way she runs everything anyway. But we have another one here, as this Andy Cohen. He apologized. They were talking to a nice black gentleman there. Anyway, he apologized for his privilege. Andy Cohen is weathering a dry spell right now. I couldn't believe that he's having problems having sex and stuff during this coronavirus. But he's a personality there on Sirius XM radio. But I get a kick out of idiots like him, in as much as those of his tribe, clan, that produce all that black music that highlights F the police over and over. But here's a little short clip of him.
As a white man, I have not had to think about my race very often. And that fact in itself is an example of privilege. What do you say to white people with little experience discussing race, who are eager to fight for racial justice and want to educate themselves and put in the work, but they're worried about stepping into a minefield and doing or saying the wrong thing?
I mean, I can start on that. Okay. As I said before, be confident of doing and saying the wrong thing. You're going to do and say the wrong thing. Yeah. Accept it. And when you do and say the wrong thing, do this thing that humans do called apologizing and working to...
When a person hears something like that, then you look at, say, what comes out of Israel and calling Palestinians, I'm not sure. Anyway, of what they call Palestinians cockroaches and stuff like that. I mean, so much for this racial equality and apologizing for being white and stuff. But anyway, I have some news today of what's going on here due to this coronavirus and stuff, alleged coronavirus. And this will start in Britain because it's not only there, but it's here too. So the NHS colleagues will testify to this being the next catastrophe that they'll face over there. The hospitals have focused far too much on this COVID with a relatively low infection rate. It sounds contrary to what the news is, as low and a low IFR, whilst allowing millions of cancer and seriously sick non-COVID patients to suffer or die without treatment. And this is from a guy named Carol Sikoror. He says, I can honestly say in all my decades of treating cancer, I have never been as worried as I am now. The figures are staggering. Patients have been delayed by 11 weeks. Cancer is spread inevitable. And then he goes on to say, we're moving from one crisis to another. More needs to be done. And we can see that here in the United States here, I know I've been waiting on a treatment here, but some of these cases here in the United States are backlogged over 3 months. And this is on the edge of, or the cusp of what Como did over there in New York there by sending all those COVID patients to those elderly folks' homes to allow them to get all infected. And of course, that was where the major outbreaks is in these elderly homes. And that probably exasperated the deaths of many people that didn't need to die. I mean, why would you remove people from a hospital and send them to an elderly center? Anyway, I listened to Jerome Powell, and I was talking to David about this prior to this, but he had just given his State of the Union, I guess we could call it. It was basically a bunch of lies. It's just like staving off the inevitable there. But I'm going to read to you from an article in 2018. It's called "America: The Future Looks Broke," and this is out of New Zealand. There's an audio transcript on there, an audio recording there, but if you look at that headline, you can listen to the actual audio. But he says, politicians in America have been running a type of intergenerational Ponzi scheme since the 1950s, and if future liabilities are accounted for on the nation's books, it is effectively bankrupt. This Kitlikoff is in New Zealand as Sir Douglas Myers visiting a professor of University of Auckland Business School, and he goes on to say, the official debt of America's, it paints an untrue fiscal picture. And if you would have listened to Jerome Powell there, you would have understood that, because I have more news on that. But he says, our official debt is about US 20 trillion. Now remember, this is back in 2018. And he said about 70% of the GDP. You might think that was relatively a modest number, much smaller than the 120% for Italy or 160% for Greece. However, a year later on CNBC, it says the total U.S. debt, including all forms of government, state, local, financial, and entitlements, liabilities, comes close to 2,000% of America's GDP. Of course, you add in all these illegal wars, it's staggering. But of course, they'll pay for the wars by taking someone else's oil. The problem is the official debt, and this is what's important for Americans to understand. It is only the debt that politicians decide to put on the books. Politicians are able and free to put whatever they want onto the books and to keep other things off the books. What doesn't get recorded is the value of all future government liabilities and the value of future receipts, what he calls a fiscal gap accounting. Again, like I say, there's an audio file there to listen to the entire thing, but it's a bleak outcome. One is, and due to this coronavirus, I got a picture
They're
off of
blaming
Twitter.
it on the coronavirus.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
This fraud has been going on a long time. The Ponzi scam of all the bankers with all this debt-based currency. This was the inevitable outcome, and they're trying to cover that by blaming it on the coronavirus, by blaming it on the Antifa Black Lives Matter protesters burning down the nation. It's everything but the banker fraud. I don't believe that.
That's it. And you know what gets me about that too, David, is the fact that if you go back to what you can look this up on the internet, it's called FRED. It's the Federal Reserve Spreadsheets, and you can look at whichever ones you want. They go for, well, the biggest one to look at right now is what they call the SM spreadsheet, and that shows where the money flow is, and there is no money flow. As a matter of fact, it's almost about ready to hit the bottom. I'm not kidding on that, but across the board, you can see that this country has never recovered since the 2008 or 2007, 2008 burst in the housing market, which back then was 800,000. And now 800 billion. And how many trillions are they now throwing across this? And then, of course, even with these bailouts like this CARES 2 package stuff, a lot of the information about where that money was spent won't be available for 2 years before the American public understands where that money went. it may have gone to many of these groups that are throwing these riots and stuff too. But and I've got a video about that later on. But speaking of that, there is a problem with the police behavior and stuff. There's a lot of good cops out there. I know that, especially here in Montana. But there's a photo from May 25th, 2020, over in Minneapolis of the cop with his leg over the guy's neck, and George Floyd there. And there's one over there on May 28th, 2020 in Paris doing the same exact thing. The guy also happens to be black. And on May 30th over in Madrid, same thing. And of course, the guy happens to be black. This is because of the way things are moving. And the only way to understand that, like I said, is to realize that people are being pushed together, and it's under that UN forced immigration. Anyone is free to look that up. And there's at least 3 links that I know of. And the one, like I say, you can, whatever country you're in, you can sit there and click on the country. It's got a spreadsheet about what they plan to do to your country. The United States, like I mentioned yesterday, yesterday, the fact that they say that the U.S. is going to have 1.3 or so billion people in it by the time they get done with this forced migration.
This is ridiculous, Keith.
It is.
The people that we have entrusted to solve the problems of society are not solving the problems of society. They're creating the problems of society instead. That is about as much of a betrayal as I can imagine.
Well, it's more than that. But, the problem is with that, David, like that video I was telling everyone about, I think it's something like the end of the world or something like that. It's on my other computer. Sorry about that. I share some of my tabs, but not all of them. But anyway, it's this guy over there in Massachusetts. He's a journalist, and he's talking about because the white population, they've put off their career, they stopped having babies, and they've put everything on the back burner. And then usually what happens is, like for the women, they get a little bit older, and then they find out they're having problems having babies. Anyway, because of the population reduction of our own races, that now they need to bring in these immigrants to be able to pay for their Social Security and other stuff to keep their governments going. So to me, it's a direct result of that. And you would think that, David, that they would co-opt these movements like this Black Lives Matters and this the other protest, and for the actual equality portion of it like that, and realize that it's these bankers doing everything to them. They're the ones that run these massive security forces, everything like that. They're the ones that do all the massive training, and it's all to protect the system. It's not to protect anyone else. And of course, they're the ones laying off millions of workers, which is causing more racial inequality, as well as job inequality, and they just don't care. But and I was thinking there, no colleges have burned down yet. So I guess it's a confirmation of who's actually really behind this and who is actually behind this. I got a little video clip for you.
A woman sort of facetiously asked if there were any paid protesters in the house. And of course, everybody shouted no and groaned. But you stood up and indicated that you are a paid protester. What did you mean by that?
Well, I meant, like we all get paid to be,
No, I don't know. Please explain.
Well, it's a difficult thing to explain, but basically, anytime that you're given the opportunity to protest and somebody will pay you to do it, that's like twice as good as just doing it on your own time.
So you weren't kidding around. You actually meant that you have been paid at some point to protest?
Yeah, like
how can I get in on that?
Yeah, okay, so you go to like georgesoros.com and you just sign up right there. You put your name in, you put your email address, and there's an empty box there where you say how many times you're willing to protest and how much you want to get paid.
And you get a check directly from Soros?
Directly from Soros.
That's incredible.
Signed by him. He even invited me to lunch.
All right, so
wow.
Yesterday, I sent a tweet to Donald Trump and to the FBI, 2 or 3 different offices of the FBI, and I says, there used to be such a thing as a Title 18 subversion law in the books like that, and I says, this guy is destabilizing this country through massive protests and stuff, and I says, and if there isn't any arrest, believe me, if William Barr can go down into Panama and grab Manuel Noriega and end America's drug problem once and for all time, then why can't the U.S., William Barr, fly over to Hungary or something like that and grab Soros and lock his butt up, But anyway, I said, if you're not going to arrest him, that means that you're all in on it. That's, you can't get much further than that.
Pretty much.
So to me, it's like a massive distraction. Of course, while there's riots and stuff like that, the banks are still doing their policy, aren't they?
Yeah, and the market's still going up. I wonder how that happens.
Yeah, well,
they shut the economy down. They closed all these businesses. That they've absolutely bankrupted everything, and they got the coronavirus and all the protests. All the cities are on fire, but yet the market is still going up. What the heck? That's completely disconnected from reality, I tell you.
It's more than disconnected there because of the fact that I didn't want to use my daughter or like that, but my daughter has a position here with the state, and yesterday she came home. Well, she comes home and she's usually distraught anymore because of the cases that they're seeing. They had 17 cases looking for emergency housing yesterday. They've all been evicted. And then, of course, there's the other ones that are having their power shut off. And it's like no one cares about small street. It's, and Montana, sadly, has the second highest suicide rate in the country here. Matter of fact, veterans fill 20% of that gap there. But daily we're seeing people lose their homes and stuff. And what gets me is watching Jerome Powell talking about this so-called trickling down to Main Street. He openly admitted that millions are not going to return to work. He also admitted that these packages that they're having for stimulus, they'll be revamped and stuff, and a lot of people are going to get left behind. And so like the 2008 financial collapse there, where Obama made over 5 million people homeless, that's going to happen again here. And then David and I was talking about this earlier too. I think it was David, or either it was Gator. By the way, Gator's not feeling too good. But anyway, these mall owners are foreclosing like mad. I'll get into this here, but these properties are distressed properties, and of course, there's a lot of people that want to what they call buy the dip. And the way Jerome Powell's talking, they're going to be sitting on these properties for 2, 3, maybe 5 years without being able to turn a dime, and they're going to be totally vacant. These are your malls, and we've already been talking about that here on RBN, about the fact of all these malls that have been shutting down and the storefronts, how many square feet that is. I think the last time I heard it was estimated it was the size of 350 Walmarts that was actually affected in size of all the retail stores closing. So it's dire.
That is.
And
how many people could all that shelter? Wow.
Yeah.
Just throw them out on the street. They're disposable humans. We don't need them. They're not the elite.
Yeah, there's a guy on Twitter that I kind of follow. Well, I don't actually follow. Not on Twitter. Well, I do follow him on Twitter. Sorry about that. On YouTube. His last name's Babe there, but he does videos there down from California. I was hoping he would call in today. One of his latest videos down there, I sent out an email that said, buy plywood and tents. And out of that, in his video, he drives around the area, the location there in California that he's at, and it shows the building after building of just covered up plywood and row after row and mile after mile of just people in tents. Anyway, we'll be right back. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone, to What Really Happened. This is Keith Rogers here in Western Montana talking to David, and we have Gator. Gator's calling in on the phone here, but before we get to Gator, I just want to read one story. In India right now, in the Times of India, you wouldn't believe the #1 book that's being read during lockdown. It's Hitler's Mein Kampf. Anyway, Gator, are you there?
I am here. I just want to make a quick comment here. I'm going to go back into my little hole here. Still having a problem with the kidney stone. That's why I'm not there today, people. But you did mention, you and I talked about earlier this morning about the government's Ponzi scheme going back to the 1950s, where they've been cooking the books, and we've been talking about they cook every number you can possibly think of, not just the financial books. They cook the numbers on the unemployment. They cook everything. All the numbers they ever hand out to you are always cooked numbers. Now, if you go back to, let's go back to Enron. Enron did the same thing. There's many corporations out there on Wall Street who have cooked their books to keep the investors on board, to keep Wall Street where it is. And actually, if they were successful at doing that, they probably would. The government wouldn't have to step in and put quantitative easing funding in there or plunge protection funding, but they still do. But the numbers are cooked. You're absolutely correct. The numbers are cooked. And I theorized that the American people would gain power if we had an economic collapse, which would point blame to the United States government. And we had the collapse. We had the collapse, all right. But we had the government using a patsy, Wuhan, China, for the COVID-19, being responsible for COVID-19. So they played it off. Instead of taking the responsibility, they found the perfect patsy with Wuhan, China, and COVID-19. Theoretically, we should have taken power back in the government, held them responsible for all their bad decision-making, all their bad financial decision-making. It didn't happen because they had the perfect patsy, Wuhan, China, COVID-19. And also in the reciprocal of that, they actually grab more power for themselves over the people, restricting movement of people. That's power. That's tyranny, actually, because they're not restricting the sick, they're restricting the healthy also. So you have actually tyranny going on here. The government has grabbed more power. So they got lucky on this one here. They found blame with Wuhan, China, and they were able to actually control the people, grab more power for themselves.
Yeah, you know me, I study history here, so I mean, this is just like Reagan. When Reagan came into office, the national debt was $880 billion, and when he left, it was $2.4 trillion. George Bush and his illegal Panama War and all the Contras that added up, continuing, Carter and Reagan's Contra wars, that added up, and of course, George Bush Sr. I mean, Clinton, you can add Clinton and Kosovo. I mean, these wars, and who makes the profit off these is these massive corporations. I mean, I don't know how people, I mean, maybe it's my own conscience really like that, but I don't know how you could sit there and like a father and watch TV and watch like shock and awe and turn to your son and say, hey, look, son, I made that bomb, you know, and then realize the whole war was a lie.
I agree. Well, I think we all agree what Mike says. He opens up quite a bit, saying the first casualty in war is the truth. And it is. It is the truth, is the first casualty in a war.
Yeah, it's sickening. And then, of course, like that video file I have of, remember Wesley Clark, General Wesley Clark, when he came out in 2002 there on Flora, whatever it was, news, and started talking about the U.S. is going to attack 7 countries in 5 years. And then recently, in 2015, I had that other video of him, which I could play, where he says that if you don't go along with this U.S. imperial agenda there, that you're a terrorist. Right. I mean, they attack the anti-war movements, and they let the demonstrators riot and run rampant to the streets. Does that make sense?
No, it doesn't. No. But it does as a strategy for the government. It does. Keith, if you look back, they learned a lot of valuable lessons during the Vietnam era. They realized how important that the reason that they actually had to pull out of Vietnam and end their war in Vietnam was because the people, the citizenry, rose up, and the media had made a big mistake on bringing too much of Vietnam into our living rooms. In the videos, we saw Americans saw all this death and destruction and all these terrible things going on, and they said, "Gosh, this is terrible. This is going nowhere." Then they start to question the reasons why we were there. The United States government learned from that experience. They made sure that the media would never bring this stuff into your living room ever again. That was a mistake. It will never happen again. So there you go. Plus, I mean, like the stance of the nation building is part of foreign policy, U.S. foreign policy. There's no doubt about it. It is core to foreign policy. And General Wesley Clark spilling the beans, 7 countries in 5 years. Yeah, so what's ever happened about that? He spilled the beans. We know the agenda. We know the Project for New American Century. We knew about that too. And has that made a difference in America? Have the people rose up and said, hey, you're a warmongering nation. We don't want any part of it.
Yeah, hey, Steve, hang on. Don't leave yet, okay? Welcome back, everyone, to What Really Happened. This is Keith Rogers sitting in for Mike Rivero. We have David and also Gator down there, Mr. Florida boy. Hey, Gator, you were talking about this, the way they're using all this against us. And you know what? We're looking at a color revolution here in the United States, and this is the same thing they did here with George Bush with the evil Muslims and stuff. They build the tempest up, and I remember that back in the 70s when all those when they're talking about them. I didn't want to use the words, but slopes and whatever other words they were using back then, and you were yellow if you didn't go along with it. The form of patriotism. And what gets me, though, is that when you look at these real Vietnam videos, one of the worst ones I ever saw was Vietnam, America's Holocaust, where the U.S. soldiers brag about cutting testicles off for a beer and stuff, Is that your dog?
Yeah.
Anyway,
I've got an intruder. My wife just got on.
Yeah, there you go.
Go back in my office here.
Yeah, but it's the same thing. Whether it was Egypt or what, they're using race and stuff to bait one another, to inflame things, and of course pushing people in with immigration. I mean, this is all co-opted by every single government because they're all in on it.
Well, like I said, the lessons learned from Vietnam, the United States government learned a lot. They learned a lot about protests. They learned about. Let's go back to some key phrases that George W. Bush used on the American people. A little psyop. You're either on the side with us or you're on the side of the terrorists. That was a psyop.
Extremism.
You shut anybody down. Any dissenting voices at that point were turned anti-American, unpatriotic, and on the side of the terrorists. Remember, another key word that George W. Bush came up with was evildoers. Okay, Yep. So you've already fingered somebody to be the evildoer. You're the one to undo the evil. Therefore, you are the exception. You are the savior. And that's exactly where they wanted to be. They wanted to be the knight in shining armor on the white horse. You've already labeled the enemy. We're going to stop the enemy. Therefore, we are the good in the world. And we know that's not it. There's an old key phrase. It's always about the money. And that still stands. It's always about the money. And money and resources, and then toppling other governments to get what you want. We are an empire. This government is an empire. That's a flat-out fact.
In decline.
And I think everything they've done, they continue to do, points to the fact that they want world domination. World domination. World's policemen, they call themselves a world's policeman. It's about world domination. It's about controlling other economies. It's about controlling the world. And the bankers, as Dave would say, the bankers are the biggest problem. He's absolutely correct. It is banker-driven.
Yep.
Sure
Follow
is.
the money.
Yep. Yeah. Me on my show, I really highlight this stuff here, how this has been fermenting for years. And, of course, I know a lot of callers here on RBN and listeners, they get a little bit peeved about immigration and stuff. But I can only think of like this so-called border wall. Instead of erecting a border wall for many billions of dollars, after what the CIA has done to all those Central American and South American countries and stuff, wouldn't it be easier just to repair what you destroyed? There's an article in Huffington Post about why U.S. businesses aren't welcome in South America anymore. And when you realize what those U.S. corporations have done to poison the Amazon River and stuff and make people so damn sick and, from the pesticides and other chemicals and stuff, and then.
I mean, when I mentioned about Keith, when I mentioned to you both about it's always about the money. Let's just look back at government. Let's look at a conflict of interest by the name of Halliburton. Okay,
Yep.
There's one of your biggest examples of a conflict of interest run by Dick Cheney and getting war. He's a war profiteer. He's a war profiteer. He's a war criminal.
Yep.
It's always about the money. Just look deep. It's not that hard to find this stuff. You find it all the time. We've talked about it. I mean, there was a great example right there. Did that matter? Did the media grab a hold of that? Did everybody learn how crooked Dick Cheney was and how they had all this? They had all the oil fields split up in the Middle East already ahead of time.
Yep.
Their little commission with the oil commission behind closed doors, how they were sitting down with the big oil companies, splitting up the oil, how they were going to divide this piece of pipe among themselves. This is what's wrong.
Media
with
wasn't
this world.
involved with all this money power from the same exact money interest. Maybe they might report on it, but they have a financial vested interest not to. They've betrayed us.
Yeah, I know.
Guys, there's an audio file on archive.org, and it's called Conspiracy Theory Final. And it's a 7-hour, I've downloaded it, but and I've made a few cuts out of it. But if you listen to that, it's the first portion of it is all those U.S. journalists over in Iraq that are complaining about how, I've got a couple of files here I could play, but all those journalists complaining about how the Pentagon was sequestering them from deriving any information about what's going on. George Bush finally shutting Iraq down and telling the journalists to get out. They didn't want anything of what was going on to be leaked back home. But post-Iraq war, the journalists are all talking among themselves about how they lied to the American people. And they actually felt bad about it. And then, of course, all the PR stunts they used, like the toppling of that statue that was done by a PR firm, just like the gal that was talking about the babies in incubators. I mean, you can go to Wikipedia and look that right up there. It tells you exactly the name of the firm who was, but, nowhere do the people of America give the authority to the government to lie to us. And remember, in 2013, Obama passed that to where they could legally use propaganda against American people.
Yeah, it's not illegal.
Yeah,
it's not illegal, and they know that. And
yeah, and then you mentioned earlier too, like with Halliburton. Well, what about Michael Chertoff and stuff after 9/11?
Right.
The massive money he
right.
made all his security stuff, and that
that's right.
That Las Vegas shooting. They start putting these scanners at all the hotels and stuff. I mean, do people see what's going on?
I get, if you went on the street and you asked some people, a lot of people, you're going to find out a very small percentage of people understand that, but they'll tell you sports scores and everything else that's important to them, but they don't seem to care. They're just too damn comfortable. Americans are too comfortable. They got a little uncomfortable with this COVID-19 being cooped up and quarantined, self-quarantined, but they're not uncomfortable enough yet. And maybe they'll wise up someday and learn, but they're still too a little comfortable.
What's it going to take, Steve? Do we have to burn the entire country down where all we have left is a smoldering pile of ashes like the overcooked books? I mean, good grief. I mean, come on.
Yep.
Wake up and smell the toast burning, everybody. We got a problem.
Yep, I agree.
Hey, since I've got time, guys, I'm going to play a video for you, okay?
Right.
This is how they lie to the American people. And this is on the cusp of, in the early 80s, when the U.S. was ramping up with UK over there and they were putting all their nukes across Europe. It was only then that the British over there realized, hey, my town's a target now. And the video was so damning and scared so many people that the BBC pulled it. And you can find that video on archive.org, by the way. But anyway, this is how they sell things to the American public, okay? So I want you to hear how this works.
I knew that the bomb was going to go off over this building in an hour. I would survive because I would walk. I can walk 5 miles in an hour, and I would get behind something so I didn't get caught with the heat flash. You don't have to get behind a concrete wall because the blast isn't going to hurt you out there. The radiation of the bomb from the explosion of the bomb is not going to hurt you. The only thing that can hurt you is the heat and it comes in a quick flash of heat, and what you have to do is be shaded. That's all. Just as if you were trying to hide from the rays of the sun, you get behind something that shades you. Had enough brains to walk for an hour and get behind a lilac bush, we wouldn't be hurt by that nuclear weapon.
Yeah. The background noise here, the background noise is the photos of Hiroshima and Nagasaki and the people burning and stuff like that. But all you need as Americans is a lilac bush to protect you in case of nuclear war. That's the important thing.
Duck
and
and
of course,
cover.
being able to walk. Yeah, duck and cover.
Duck and cover. That's right.
That was
Isn't that
Lieutenant.
funny? We can all recall those. We can recall those tests in school. All of us diving under the desk as if that was going to protect us from a nuclear bomb. That desk was more powerful than I thought. It was stronger than I thought. That it would save us in a nuclear war. How stupid is that? And it sold. Evidently, it sold because they were teaching this in school. And I do remember when we were doing these stupid tests. But we were, as kids, we didn't have the intelligence then to say, wait a minute here. This is going to protect us from a nuclear bomb. But
yeah, Stephen.
They sold it.
Yeah, Stephen, I got that video. It's Lieutenant General D. Graham. That's off the same video of where I was trying to remember. I think the population of America was 170 million or something like that at the time. And they were saying in the video there that having a casualty loss of 60 million Americans would be acceptable to the U.S. military. And then it went on with the proceeds about using massive bulldozers to just make the mass graves and stuff, and giving opiates and stuff to the survivors and stuff. And of course, they went on with the statistics about how many doctors would be available because of the major cities being nuked and stuff. But that was an acceptable risk to them. These guys are psychopaths.
Wow. Yeah, they are.
Yeah, they are. Well, that's it for me, guys. I need to go take some pain medication and get on with my therapy here.
All right, sounds good. I hope you feel better, okay? Tell Michelle hi.
Got it. We'll talk to you later. Bye.
All right, sounds good. Hey, and speaking about that, David, Putin over there, there's a good article on Zero Hedge where it says nuclear brinkmanship is back, and Putin okays the use of using nukes in response to and now listen, in response to conventional attacks. And the article goes on to say Putin appears to now be making good on these reciprocal threats. We're always hearing about this, U.S. in their first strike and everything like that, you know. And with all the, let's just call it air incursions lately of overflights. And remember that the U.S. just killed that Open Skies Treaty here. So they're ramping up this anything towards pissing someone off, whether it's China, Russia, whatever like that, Iran, because, I mean, with virtually 40 million burger flippers, I'll call it, and the military now saying that they should lower the inscription age down to 16, because apparently a 16-year-old here in America with an assault rifle is bad, but you can have one out on the field and kill for the state, and that's good. But anyway, but this is in Russia's, response to this conventional arms attack, and we know that with the U.S. and these missiles in Poland, that Poland and these guys are starting to realize that they are now just like that video I was talking about earlier, when the bomb dropped, that these guys, whether it's Poland, Germany, whatever like that, who are trying to make amends with Russia, that they are going to be a first strike when all hell breaks loose. And then on top of that, we have what they call a race to the top, not the bottom, but this is the Arctic. Russia now is exploring more up there in the Arctic. And of course, with that, on June 9th, which was yesterday, Trump issued a memorandum on safeguarding U.S. national security interests in the Arctic and also the Antarctic regions. And then, of course, this is more of that full spectrum dominance. And that article's off the Guardian there, but all they want to do is pump war, billions of dollars. And I've said this before. It's like when you read that the Cairo Agreement, where in Japan's unconditional surrender, it gave all those islands back to China, clear dating back to the First World War, and that's why they sit there located in the South China Sea. Anyway.
You remember the State of the Union address, how Trump was going on about how they spent record amounts of money, on this defense and all the wars and stuff like that. How both sides of the aisle stood up with a standing ovation. They all agree on all that stuff. That should really make people wonder. The stuff that they all agree on is really the stuff we really need to be afraid of.
Well, listening to Tom Cotton talk about sending the troops into on Americans and stuff. I mean, when Secretary Pompeo got out there and bragged about as a CIA agent, he lied, cheated, and stole, and he meets with all this applause. When you listen to the cockpit voices of those in Collateral Murder, of those guys cheering each other on, and this goes on and on. It's just like these guys are absolute psychopaths.
Yeah.
But anyway,
they are.
Where are we at on time here?
Got a couple minutes before the break.
Yeah. So I got another one here for everyone out here listening. Tony Blair calls for a new digital ID so that people can prove their coronavirus disease status, alongside test and trace programs as the world eases out of a lockdown. The former Prime Minister of Britain, who has caused more deaths than the coronavirus, I added that, was speaking at a virtual CogX technology conference where Mr. Blair, the war criminal, said that the digital ID was a natural evolution to navigate daily life. He said the COVID virus gives additional reasons to adopt a digital ID. Why can't we track these politicians? But anyway, this NHS test and trace system launched in England and Scotland at the end of May. Mr. Blair said the ID system would operate alongside this track and trace programs. We've been finding out here recently here that the police have been using that on these protesters too, as this track and trace. But this is, I mean, as Gator mentioned there, the total tyranny is being shown daily. And the important thing is that it's not patriotism, it's freedom. That's why people come to America, is because of freedom. They leave rapacious governments and they seek freedom here. Whether they want to live out in the country or live in the city, they just want to do their own thing. They don't want government, these rapacious governments bother them and stuff. And of course now, with the NSA spying on you, these FISA stuff, everything you ever said on a phone, or God knows, probably radio too, is all stored down in Utah at some data center and stuff, But this is a massive tyranny grab, and both parties are behind it because they keep redoing these things for either side. Doesn't matter whether it's a Republican for a president or a Democrat. They just keep renewing these things.
Yep.
And you mentioned earlier there, remember, Obama pumped over $1 trillion in the nuclear stuff, and so's Trump. It's the same thing. Anyway, stay tuned, everyone. We'll be right back here. Welcome back, everyone, to What Really Happened. This is Keith Rogers here in beautiful western Montana, and I have David out here with Crucial Nonsense. And before we get back into this, I want to play one little small clip here.
Secret organization is a risk in any society. I believe it's a risk that we must take for the net gain, because I believe it's always going to be there. Now, let's say that we abolish the CIA. It's done so many bad things. Let's don't ever have this kind of intelligence organization again. Do you know what's going to happen? American presidents are strong-willed men. They wouldn't be in that office if they weren't. If they don't have an intelligence service, they're going to create their own. It may not be very big, and they may reach into the loony bin to find the people to run it. And they may call it the plumbers, but they will have it.
The interesting part about that is he goes on to talk about how, and not just him, but other former CIA talk about how they use the mob to set people up as marks, and then when they're done with them, they just kill them. And this has been rehearsed over and over and over, especially like those from the School of Americas. I could also play that one there too, about what happened down there. And these are all used where they get traitors, not stock traders, but traitors in their own country, because they can print money out of thin air to sit there and go against their own people and install these fascist governments who oppress their people, so that those countries are now what they call Western approved or internationally accepted, which facilitates these big multinational corporations to just basically gut or strip mine the country of all assets. And then people wonder why, say, Hispanics working for $1.90 a day trying to support a family who's had their land stolen because JBS US, which is that Brazilian-based meat company that Trump bailed out 3 times down in Brazil, can have its massive amount of land and stuff, and also to be able to supply 600% of the pork over to China, supply Tyson Foods and was it Smith's Whole Foods, whatever it is, the other one there too. You know, personally, I have a conspiracy page out there that highlights all this, and I think the so-called COVID stuff all started from that Sao Paulo, Brazil, where they've had massive graves, over, was it 15,000 people in the same city that JBS US is at. I cover that on my show. So if you're ever curious, you can drop by on Perception Management then and see what's going on there. But anyway, David, we're getting towards the top of the hour here, so I just got one more thing here, and then we'll open the lines up here. We have Ken waiting over in New York. But one thing here about assets, you know, if you don't fight for the Constitution and your Bill of Rights, these commies will seize your assets and you'll lose your asses when the state seizes them by a new law. And has this ever happened before? Well, okay, everyone, welcome back. I guess I should say aloha from Montana. You're listening to Keith Rogers here at whatreallyhappened.com. We've got David there. I have some stuff coming up here on these statues and stuff, which are now being attacked and stuff. But first, we'll pick up Ken over in New York there. Good evening, Ken.
Hi, how you doing? You and Dave. I think I have my own tracking plan that I'd like to see done. I think either you or one of the other hosts once said that some people carry a gene that predisposes them to being politicians.
It wasn't me, but it sounds good.
But yeah, same difference.
Yeah. Oh, the psychopath gene? Is that what it is? Yeah, I think we should start telling the politicians that they're the ones that need to be tracked and start spreading that around.
Well, on Twitter lately, they've been saying these politicians should be drug tested because there's something wrong with these guys.
Yeah, they shouldn't be allowed to run around loose. They need to be restricted. Yep. That's all I have. Good night.
That's all you have? All right, well, sounds good there. You take care, okay? Good to hear from you, Ken. Dustin over there in New Jersey. Good evening, Dustin. What do you got for us today? And I'm not going to pick on you, so go ahead.
You can pick on me all you want, man. You guys are great.
Thanks.
Hey, you know, like, look, it's all about money, man. Like, have you ever seen like a suitcase full of money? Any of you guys? Like, yeah. I saw a wall full of mone, a wall full of cash one time.
I never seen anything like it in my life.
No, I probably seen $250,000 in stashed in a wall. So that's nuts, right?
Yeah, I grew up in Las Vegas. That was back when the Italian mob ran the place. So,
I mean, it's all about money, guys. I mean, like money changes. I talked about that yesterday, right? Like it's human nature. I mean, it's greed, man. That's what it comes down to.
Dustin, let me ask you something. Yeah, through lawfare, what would you do if you were offered a certain amount of money and knew that your backside would be covered if you went out and you did the deed and they deposited some money in some offshore bank and stuff, and when you got done, you had access to your money? Would you, and remember, and you're protected by the law through the courts and stuff because they would rig everything. This is how the CIA does things like that. Would you go as far like that to say, well, maybe I could? How would your conscience work?
I would think about it.
Well, that's just it.
Everybody would think about it. I wouldn't just say, "Oh no, I'm not going to do that." The people who say we're not going to do that is full of crap. Because, but you know what? I'm a Catholic. I got morals. You know, you know what pisses me off? You guys talked about Dick Cheney and the rest of the group, David Cameron and
the hoodlums.
What was the other guy? Tony Blair and George Bush.
Tony.
Garbage.
Yep.
Yeah. Like, they have their money already deposited before anything happens. You know what I mean? Like, they have their dough. Like, it's all about empire for these guys, the British, the United States. Like, come on. I mean, that you guys talked about the girl. Remember the girl from the ambassador to the Kuwait who lied about the babies? How much did she get? You know, I mean, these people are all garbage, man. You know what? I would think about it, but I wouldn't take a cent. These people are killers, dude. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Dustin,
I have
videos where the CIA openly admits that they use someone. They'll deposit the money into a bank, and once they do the deed like that, they'll off the guy and just transfer the money right back to where they want. That's how they use people.
The Central Idiot Agency. You know what? You think it's not beyond the realm of possibility? Because they don't have a problem dropping pallets of weapons in Syria, right? You don't think they can deliver a truckload of weapons or bricks around the United States? Let me tell you, they can do it, and they would do it because you know what? They have no loyalties to anything. You know, it's a rogue agency like the FBI. You know, you have your good guys in there, which is a small percentage, but you also have your, you know, people who do it because they're told to, you know, but at the end of the day, I mean, I don't understand, like Dick Cheney, George Bush, Trump, you know, Trump put in the same people that was in this. I know I'm going to get heat from this from somebody.
No, you're right. It's a revolving door, just like the bankers go into the.
We're going to drain the swamp of alligators, and we're going to replace them with crocodiles. See, there we go. We drain the swamp.
Yeah. How do you drain the swamp? Put in Elliot Abrams. Elliot Abrams ran death squads, guys. Like, as soon as Trump does that, then he's off the table. I'm sorry. I'm staying home. I don't care if Joe Biden
I think he might have been, honestly trying to make a difference, make America great again. But once he got in there, like all other politicians before that had any ideals, he got compromised. And so little has actually happened for the cause of liberty and the people. And so it's very disappointing. Hey, we're glad he's not Hillary Clinton. And if I had it to do all over again, I would vote for him again over that witch, because we knew exactly what kind of evil we were getting into there.
Yeah, as you're saying that.
But you know, at the end of the day, the lesser of two evils is still, if you vote for Trump or Hillary, you're still morally effed up, dude. You know what I mean?
It's
like,
part of the system.
You can't go by that no more. Like, they're both flawed. Okay, did Hillary Clinton put in Elliot Abrams and Mike Pompeo? Yeah, like, why would you pick John Bolton? Like, I mean, if I'm president, I wouldn't have put John Bolton in. John Bolton might have left, but his ghost is still there. Maybe that's what Trump believes in. It's not about making America great again. It's about keeping the empire, man.
If you got to be president, they would come to you and they would blackmail you. They would threaten your family. They would do whatever the hell they had to do to make sure that you would do exactly what your handlers tell you to do.
As David says, they wouldn't be showing you a copy of the Zapruder film. They'd be showing you the live stuff of what they actually filmed and say, hey, look, this is what's going to happen to you.
Bring it on. What's the difference then? Like, what difference does it make? Like Hillary Clinton said, what difference does it make? If you know what I mean? Like, it blackmail, who cares?
Yeah.
You know, where is, like with the border wall and then the wars, Trump said he's going to get out of Afghanistan. That was over a month ago, right?
They said it's going to, Dustin, they said it's going to take 14 months. Like Ron Paul said, though, you walked in, walk out, But anyway, hey, Dustin, I'm getting behind. I got a couple more calls. Okay.
Obama said he was going to bring the troops home from Afghanistan, and we could take it to the bank, and then the banks collapsed. So that tells you all you need to know.
and Trump bailed out 5 of them as soon as he came to power. So, all right, Dustin, take care of yourself. Mark over in North Carolina. Good evening.
Mark,
Hello,
North Carolina.
Mark.
You there, Mark?
Yeah, hi. This is Mark.
There you go.
You there? Oh, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I just want to say, before I turned you guys on, before I was listening to Ron Paul on YouTube, all right? He's got a show on there. And he was saying how Fauci, kind of like the creature from the Black Lagoon or like Jason and Friday the 13th, keeps coming back. And now he's saying that, we really got to worry. The cases are really getting bad in Texas and this and that. I've come to the feeling now that this is nothing but a deep state plot to take our freedoms away. Not only deep state, the technocrats and everything else. This is what they want to do. They want to basically destroy this country. They want to destroy pretty much mankind as a whole, and eventually have the robots run this world. Okay, these people are plain evil, and if we don't stand up to them, they're going to get their way with us.
Well, the way to look at that, Mark, is once America falls, then the rest of the world will see what's going on there. It'll just be total fascism.
It's right out of the Agenda 2030 playbook. Of course, the globalists are in there. And that's exactly what's going on.
Well, there's only one other country I think that has a chance to stand up to them, as long as they have their brilliant president, and there's somebody at least once he leaves takes over, and that's Russia. Okay, because they seem pretty wise to what's going on. Also, as their leadership is far better than ours right now. Ours seems hopelessly. I would say Donald Trump may have some good ideas. He may have the right, but he's totally incompetent in how he's running his government. He keeps putting the worst monsters in there with him. People like psychopaths like Pompeo, and he had Bolton in there before. Finally got rid of him, but he should have never been there in the first place. And and why doesn't he have Fauci? He's got a guy like Dr. Ben Carson. Why doesn't he put him in charge of this thing? Or why didn't he hire somebody like a Dr. Rashid Buttar? I think, Buttar, or a guy like Dr. Shiva. These people, I've been learning so much from them watching that, online. Okay, this is a hoax. That's all this is. This is at the worst. This is another kind of a flu. They probably took actual flu cases and said they're COVID cases. It's declaring people dead in shootouts of dead of COVID. I'll bet you some shyster lawyer is going to come in now and say that George Floyd actually died of COVID. And that's from somebody, 4 cops holding him down, one with a knee in his throat. They'll say he died of COVID now. Okay.
Yeah, Mark, Mark, I have plenty of videos of like doctors up in Kalispell and everything like that saying that they were told to mislabel deaths as all being COVID-19, and to me that's falsifying a death certificate. Yes, and the same thing with these hospitals that are getting bailed out. And you mentioned that about Trump. I have no problem with a guy like that, but I'm from Las Vegas, and I grew up knowing that the house always wins. And how do you have 2 bankrupt casinos? That's the thing with me.
Yeah, it makes you worry.
I just want to ask you guys something. I'm thinking of North Carolina's not too bad of a state, but the problem is we got a bum like Cooper, who's the governor, and hopefully he'll be voted out. But just in case, I'm looking for a good place to move where I don't think they'll ever be able to pull the crap they want to crap. Is Montana that type of a place? It seems like it's a lot of free.
It's so laid back here, except I'll say this. So because of job problems in Montana, there is, not for me, but there is a lot of depression and stuff. I have dogs. I never get depressed. But anyway, but there is a lot of depression in the state of Montana here. But there's just barely over 1 million people, and remember this state is like 640 or 680 miles wide. You can drive for hours at times and not see anyone, and that's what I love about this area. Of course, I live way out in the country.
Breathtaking scenery. It's absolutely beautiful in Montana.
But anyway, Mark, I got to let you go here. I got 4 more callers here. So can you wrap her up?
All right. Basically that's all I want to say is that these people better get ready, because they're going to try to push that vaccine in us. They're going to try to take away the ability to be employed and wherever else if you don't contact trace and you don't. And also, by the way, folks, don't bring your phones into stores. Turn them off. Keep them in your car if you have them on you at all. Okay, folks?
Right. Yeah, that's like Pompeo. Yeah. That's like Pompeo talking about the autonomy there of Hong Kong there. Well, if they have that right to be free, how come we have to be subjected to all their poisons that they keep putting into us? Anyway, thanks, Mark. Jim in Montana. Good afternoon there, Jim.
Hey, guys. Hey,
Jim.
I love you guys. You're
pretty on point. That's Steve. It's the first time I've really got to listen to him, and yeah, I'm kind of right along with him with my research and stuff. But anyway, yeah, it's here, guys. They are not gonna stop until they have complete control, just like you're saying, until we're all chipped. Oh, we are heading to civil war. We are. They're going to bring the UN in. It's coming. I am watching the system fall apart before my eyes. Did you guys see the yesterday on Fox, the New York police? It was the union representative for the police department.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Spoke on Fox. Oh, that was powerful. And now the cops know who they're working for. Most cops are believe in the system, trying to do the right thing. Now they know. Okay. It's not going to stop. Okay. Then he says, you explained to him that Trump got compromised. He did. And he had told him, like, yeah, they come in and they'll threaten and they'll do everything, and and they'll threaten your kids and everything. Dustin says, so what? Bring it on. Oh, shit. I'm calling your car. What have you done? What have you really done? Okay, Dustin, all right. Let's set the date and time. Let's just start advertising for the next week on this radio show. Like, hey, we're all going to rally at Capitol Hill. Let's do something then. Okay? I'm ready. I'm down.
Right.
But, let's just do it. Let's finally do it. We've been we're spinning our wheels at this point. We all the information's out there. The people that are going to wake up, the people, they're trying to wake people up and gather who we can. I mean, we've pretty much got everyone we can. Let's do it. Let's set the date, set the time. We're going to rally Capitol Hill. I had a few kinks. I had a credible plan that's perfectly constitutional, legal, and democratic. Take over Congress, like a 5-day. People take over Congress. Okay, and I've worked out the kinks. Okay, and it would be voted through the nation the whole time. It would be nonviolent. I have the plan. I've got a perfect plan. For creating the perimeter and not allowing any of media in. Not creating a division of guys to walk through where we're stationed and be on the watch out for anybody that's trying to pose as one of us, but then try to do something crazy and make us look bad. Okay, I've got it all planned out. If we want to go that route. Okay, I'm ready. Who's with me? We can start advertising next week on this radio show. Like, all right, we're gonna join us at the Rivero Rangers rally in Capitol Hill, Washington D.C. This state. Hope to see you there. Come with us. Let's go.
Jim, the first thing.
To me,
Yeah, Jim, I like the idea like that, but the problem is, in an idea like that, it's great, but once you start broadcasting your intentions, the feds are going to get in there and co-opt it somehow. Like
nearly immediately. That's why a bottom-up solution. You start working in your communities and work up from there. That will be what will be effective.
I do.
That can work.
Oh yes, I do. I do a lot. But well, I mean, if that's the route you guys, that's not going to be enough at this point.
Well, no, you're right. You're right. And
if we were going to go that route, we should have started that a long time ago. Yeah,
Jim,
Carol, for that.
Jim, Carol Asher called in yesterday and was basically kind of asking, like, what can we do? And I think that the only way we can do this is, since the government is only backing up banks and corporations, is to defund them, just boycott them.
Boycott.
Oh, I agree. I'm down for
one
boycott.
at a time. Take them down. Don't ever do any bone business with them, and make sure nobody ever does until that bank or that corporation dies on the vine. Then you move to the next one, then the next one, and the next one until they finally start to listen. We may have to take them all out one at a time, but we starve them. We quit doing business with
I'm
them.
with you.
Yep.
Which corporations first? I'll do it. Which one do you guys want to go with first? Which one do you want to boycott first? I'm with you.
Well, I think the only way to do it now is, since the M2 liquidity type thing is since the banks lifely say that Americans are saving more when the IMF says that most Americans only have $400 or less, that the only way to do that is, as they're pumping trillions of dollars in liquidity into these banks and corporations, is not spent on anything like that. So they're using reverse psychology here, where they keep saying that Americans have got money, but they're hoarding it. Well, that's a lie, because with all the millions of Americans, and as well as the millions, 20 some odd million that was unemployed before. See, so no one has money that, so the only way to do that there is just defund them by start pulling your money out of banks. But that would be a bank run. I wouldn't want to, Anyway, I got a break coming up here. Yeah. You're listening to What Really Happened. This is Keith Rogers here in Western Montana talking with Dave, and we also have Jim on the phone. I just got a story here off of Twitter. It says, I guess this is from Time Magazine, but it says, Melinda Gates says black people must be vaccinated first for COVID-19 after healthcare workers. And I have a thing on one of my web pages there that says that this COVID-19 is what they call a self-limiting disease. 80% get it and survive. But anyway, hey, Jim, I need you to wrap it up there so we can get on to a couple more callers here, okay?
Right, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think if you guys want to take a corporation or a bank or whatever, pinpoint it, and rally what really happened listeners to start boycotting, I would be more than willing to start getting a hold of some other alternative media like Alex Jones and see if they would participate in it as well. But anyway, I gotta go get my kid.
Just start breaking your dependency from all these things. Take care of yourself. Start bartering with your neighbors and your community where you're not dependent upon any of it anymore, because it's all going to collapse anyway.
It makes me mad is, you
must not know who I am yet. So, I'm ready. I'm pressed. I've got a completely self-sufficient.
Well, go out there in your community and evangelize your neighbors to that. Get everybody on board, because if you've got a strong community behind you, then you stand a much better chance. Strength in numbers, brother.
And the other thing about these banks, though, is it's like having a government check and you go to get it cashed and someone says, well, you don't have an account here. Yeah, but it's a government it's certified. Well, you don't have an account here. We can't cash it for you. Those are the type of banks you need to get rid of it. Yeah. I don't have one either. I
hate the Rothschilds. The other reason I know we're heading a civil war, because I have been getting in touch with people all over the nation, in every state, through Facebook and whatever. And the way I see it is we are split about 50-50. There at least half this country is not going to go along with the forced vaccinations.
No, they're
not. They don't care. The globalists are fine with that. The globalists are fine with that. Fine. We'll bring the UN in. Let's you guys all destroy yourselves. They're not going to stop till we are all chipped.
Well, the anger is going to grow, Jim. The anger is going to grow as more and more people realize that they're not going to be going back to work and stuff, and they're going to start fermenting on this anger like that. So, if they think they're going to run around and start popping needles,
I've been pissed. I've been freaking mad for a long time. And I've been ready. I just don't wait for everybody else to, But anyway, I don't want to take up other people's time. I appreciate you guys so much. You guys have a great day.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, because I got I have some important news to get to here too, so I got to kill off here about at 20 to the hour here. So anyway, I think we lost Jim in Austin there. So Mo in Florida. Good evening, Mo.
John in California is here.
Oh, John. Sorry, John in California there. My bad. Go ahead, John.
No problem. That's okay. Hi, Keith. Hi, Dave. Good show. I got so much, I don't know where, but I'm just going to say what they've talked about is this, they're trying to get the control, and they've tried it for so many years and generations for all kinds of things. Now they finally are doing this where they've got a plandemic, where they've got fear in a lot of people people not going anywhere, shut down, lockdown, whatever. And businesses closed. So we'll see if that gets enough to the people bow. Or as you said, I always said, nothing's happened because people aren't, have become hungry enough. Well, maybe they'll finally, if this doesn't change, get hungry enough to do something enough where they got nothing to lose. That's what it's come to this point.
Do you remember Italy when the farmers got pissed off over there and they started blocking the freeways and they started using the manure spreaders and backing up there to their parliamentary, just throwing the crap on their doors?
Oh, yeah. Well, that's like I said, nothing's really happened like that in this country
yet.
I don't know, maybe because it's so big and that and all that, but that's one of the things. So as you said, we're forced vaccinations. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see people may. But the thing about, the simple thing, but this had to go back years and years. If you're going to start somewhere, and some people think, well, it doesn't make any difference anymore because they're all bought and paid for. Your local, your reps, state, local, federal. At least you start running. You start there somewhere. Now, if you had several million people failing, they're doing a poor job. Get off it. We're going to vote you out. That might get their vote. I don't know, but you got to start somewhere. Maybe it's too late. I'm not sure, but that's one thing. It's still good. People saying you're not to vote because it's fraudulent. Well, it's fraudulent because not enough people have done it and really checked it out. So, and the last thing I'll do that I haven't. It's funny. Other than our congressman Eric Swalwell, local, hasn't said anything since before the George Floyd debacle. We haven't heard anything from our local state reps, senators, or legislators. Not a thing, even before this pandemic started. But what happened, I think Friday, Congressman Swalwell with a few of his usual suspects there, and I can't remember. I apologize. It's something about. It's called the Law Enforcement Act, I think, of 2020. They're going to, overhaul anything, investigate the police when they need be, train them better. And I looked at two things under training. They say profiling, color, racial profiling, and religious profiling. Well, they didn't say what religion they're talking about. I doubt they're not going to say anything about Christians. Who cares about them? It's all the others.
All right, John, I got a break. Here. But anyway, thanks for calling in, okay? We'll be right back here. Yeah, thank you. We'll be right back here on What Really Happened. Welcome back, everyone. This is Keith Rogers here with What Really Happened with David over there, running co-pilot with me here. The phone lines I need to close here because I have some news stories to get to. But other than that, we'll pick up Mo over there in Florida. Good afternoon there, Mo. How you doing? Or evening, where you're at?
How you doing?
We're hanging in there.
Hello?
We're on the right side of the grass, brother.
But it takes three of you to make up for Mike.
Oh, yeah, easily.
You guys are great, though. You're like my brothers. All I'm saying is you're talking about Justin, whoever called in about, whoever it was talking about what we could do, boycotting this and that. I just got, six words. Stop filling out an income tax form. I mean, that's all we got to do. I realize
Mo, you make good sense here. You know why? If you go to the usdebtclock.org, and remember, Trump wants this massive tax break there. But if you go to usdebtclock.org and look at the number of the national debt going up, you'll see that the tax amount collected is going down. That is what's going to bankrupt this country. So
that was already happening before all the jobs were lost because of the shutdowns and stuff. We were already having a tax non-compliance thing going on. And now that a lot of the jobs have been removed and the businesses have been closed, that's already happening. So, let's just pile on, just say enough is enough, because the 16th Amendment was never really properly ratified. The income tax was voluntary. It's all private stuff. It's a big fraud on us anyway. So, it's time to say enough is enough.
I love you guys, man. I wish you lived next door.
Yeah. Bring the Jack Daniels.
Everybody thinks I'm crazy. I've been following up a campaign for Ron Paul twice. I'm not a genius, but I know when we've been ripped off. Griffin, the Federal Reserve, the creature from Jekyll Island, it's all a scam. And you know what? I'm going to say this, and I'm going to, this is a little bit of a risk, but I'm going to say this, that I judge a lot of people by, and I'm not saying that the Zionists are the only ones or not, but if you don't call out Israel and the fact that they control the United States Senate, the whole government, really, if you don't call that out, you're fake news. And that's what I love about Mike. He don't give a flying. He just says it like it is and tells the truth.
It's all about the
a little
truth.
more subtle. Yeah, but if Ron Paul's a little more subtle. But the fact is, all you got to do is Google it and see who runs the media. See who got us in all these wars. From whatever you're going to say. If Israel, they stole our nuclear secrets, and that's just a matter of record. But nobody wants to talk about it because they control everything. And that's all I got to say. I love you guys.
All right, best to you there, okay, Mo?
Take care, Mo.
Truth.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's like I say, Israel supplied the arms for the Rwanda genocide. And if you watch those videos, like on Twitter, where those kids over there in Miramar were sitting there being lit on fire, I forget if there's a term they use for that, but Israel was selling the arms for that junta over there. Same thing down in Honduras. I mean, this has been going on for years, and I played that clip here the other day on about the fact that Israel screwed up there by labeling arms that were stolen from taken from from Lebanon, and they got into Texas there, labeled as CIA weapons for the Contras there, but they were from Israel there, and they backed out of that deal because they almost got caught there. Oops. Anyway, David in Florida. Good evening, David.
Hi, Keith. How are you?
Oh, hang in there.
Hope you can hear me. It's raining real hard here in Florida right now, so I don't know if you can hear me or not.
Yeah, we got you loud and clear, bro.
Oh, excellent, excellent. Listen, all I really want to say, I don't know if you guys have already talked about it today, but I just seen on a certain website, very credible, who is Christine Grady?
Christine
you
Grady,
know who Christine Grady is?
No.
Yes. She works for the NIH, which is the National Institute of Health, and guess who her husband is?
Fauci.
Fucci of the National, well, I call him Fucci. Fucci in Mexican means stinky. You know what I mean? So she's the head. She's the one that fast tracks medicines. And remember, she's the one that put the hold on this hydrochloride or whatever you want to call it. Look it up when you guys get a chance. I don't know if you guys have talked about it.
Yeah.
Yes. I don't know if you guys have looked it up, but look up her name. Follow the money. Follow the money.
Yep, that's
all I can say. Have a great day.
All right, thanks, David. My best to you, okay? Jim over in Austin. Try to keep it short so I can get on some news here, okay?
Yeah, I just had one thing to say. If they really want to get to the bottom of it, Gina likes the waterboard. She should start with Larry Silverstein, move up to Dick Cheney, and end with Nelson Rockefeller.
And George Bush, Jr.
There you go.
Yep, that's what I would do.
Works for me.
I don't know.
Senior back, we could waterboard him too, but I don't think it'd do any good.
Yeah, Jim, did you see the original footage of Bush sitting in school there, where the teacher is sitting there instructing the children, where she goes off and says kite, airplane, steel, building?
Didn't catch that.
Yeah, I have it on my website here, but if you watch that thing, this is a psychological warfare they play on people. This is how they program those children, so the minute they saw that would be embedded in their memories for life. And that's why you always hear this reference to 9/11.
Yeah, they always got to tell us what they're going to do.
Yep.
Well, that's all I had for you.
All right. Well, thanks for calling in, okay, Jim? Anyway, I'll get to some news here. I want to get to some really important financial news here. I'm getting toward the end of the hour here. So first of all, I want to say this. I have a picture in front of me of a Congolese man who's staring at these amputated limbs of his 5-year-old daughter. It shows a hand and the lower foot there. It was punishment for not collecting enough rubber for King Leopold II of Belgium. And of course, today in Antwerp, the people complain that the statue of King Leopold has been removed. This is how people lionize these others. But clearly, throughout the world, many statues should be removed because, as I mentioned, this lionizing people as heroes. That'd be like looking at a statue of John McCain. It just make me puke, you know. But anyway, just as these presidential libraries do, like Ronald Reagan. When you think of 200,000 people killed like that, they weren't just killed, they were butchered by those School of America cartel guys, you know. And of course, the war on statues is ongoing because today This time, the Christopher Columbus statue fell to victims of vandals over there in Richmond, Virginia. And on top of that, you remember George Well from 1984 said, every record has been destroyed or falsified, every book rewritten, every picture has been repainted, every statue and street building has been renamed, every date has been altered, and the process is continuing day by day and minute by minute. History has stopped. Nothing exists except an endless present in which the party is always right. And so on top of that, as a personal note, I keep thinking of the timing of reopening all these cities and states with all those protesters and riots is just a little bit suspicious, like trying to drive this COVID stuff, But anyway, as I mentioned earlier, the stock market no longer cares whether or not Trump wins. And this article is on a poll for Trump there. It's from CNN, so you can take it for what it is. But it says that the stocks have been on the most amazing ride over the past few months. What they omit here was the basic trillions being pumped into the market there by the Fed there. And of course, this is to glorify Joe Biden, who has an alleged growing head-to-head national lead over President Donald Trump like that, Anyway, the Democrats have something planned. Will be to dump Biden and replace that vegetable with perhaps a fruit or something like that. But anyway, as far as the economy, it has been the Democrats that have shut this country down. We know that Trump and his administration has been trying to open up, and of course, they keep delaying it more and more. Remember, though, how public health collapsed after the Soviet Union fell. I fear the West will see the same due to this post-lockdown, and this is going to be catastrophic. So, but anyway, on Twitter right now, they're talking about this global reset. And of course, this is the same predators, parasites, and psychopaths who today make up today's wonderful world of freedom, harmony, and prosperity and justice for all. Not. They're now manipulating your mind with emotions and sales pitches for transforming everything into, repeat, their better world. So, the world's largest population, and this was a human interest one, the world's largest population of nesting green turtles is nearly twice as big as previously thought. There's over 64,000 green turtles, and I thought that was pretty good. They're off of the Great Barrier Reef. But remember Snowden, his greatest fear was that nothing would change after the disclosures and leaks. Society will know that the government will grant them powers to create greater control over the U.S. and globally, but society won't take the risk and fight for their interest. That's a direct quote from Snowden there. Now, when it gets down to this, what's going on here with disarming the police and stuff, on October 6, 2015, Loretta Lynch announced before the United Nations at the Attorney General's office, in collaboration with several U.S. cities, they will form a global law enforcement initiative called the Strong Cities Network. This will be the implementation of UN rules and laws on U.S. soil, bypassing Congress and circumventing the Constitution. And you can find that article on Truth or Fiction. Black Lives Matter and Black Second Amendment rights matter. This here was kind of a pro and a con article here, but it says let's outfit our police with body cameras and let's write the rules for those with the cameras, as voters in Ferguson, Missouri did last April by passing this ballot initiative. And of course, remember, most cops have always been facing repercussions there because of not having their cameras on or turning them off. And of course, the footage is either made or not made available. So there's a massive protection thing in there, And then also remember that President Obama then, in 2014, with the shooting of Michael Brown in Ferguson, found that Brown was at fault as the aggressor, not the police officer. He had body cam footage. Had the body cam footage been publicly released, that the riots followed may not have erupted, and that's the most important thing. Citizens would have been saved millions of dollars in property damage and spared the divide along this racial and political lines all over the nation there. So, again, this is how they ferment things. Now, the economy. Where is the economy going? The world economy is expected to contract by 5.2% this year, and don't believe these things. It's probably worse. The worst recession in 80 years, but the sheer number of countries suffering economic losses means the scale of the downturn is worse than any recession in 150 years, the World Bank said in its latest Global Economic Prospects report. This is deeply sobering outlook, with the crisis likely to leave long-lasting scars and pose major global challenges, said the World Bank Group Vice President of this Equitable Growth Finance and Institution. And then below that, I have department stores, restaurants, apparel merchants, and specialty chains have been getting the notice as property owners who have gone unpaid for as long as 3 months have lost their patience now because the government is not releasing this CARES 2 stuff to pay these mortgage and lenders for people that have these properties. And so what are they doing? They're now seizing the properties. So those that might have reopened won't have nothing to open. The default letters from landlords are flying out the door, said Andy Gracer, the co-president of this A&G Real Estate Partners, whose firm works with the retailers and other commercial tenants. It's creating a real fear in the marketplace, Gracer said. Pressure from default notices and follow-up actions like locking up stores and terminating leases was cited in the bankruptcies of Modell's Sporting Goods and Stage Stores, Inc. Many chains stopped paying rent after the so-called pandemic shuttered most of the U.S. stores, gambling that they could hold on to some cash before the landlords demanded payment. And remember, this is where under that CARES 2 Act, remember, they said that like it was almost a third of that still hadn't been allocated out. So, I mean, they're deliberately causing small businesses to fail. And over on, I forget what's this called again, Wall Street on Parade, there's 2 articles you should read. The Fed just pulled off another backdoor bailout of Wall Street. This was dated today. This is by Pam Martins and Russ Martins.
They've been doing that all along.
Yeah. The Federal Reserve has authorized 11 financial bailout programs thus far, despite Fed Chairman Jerome Powell's reassurances at his press conferences that these programs are to help American families. A full 10 of those programs, are actually bailouts of Wall Street banks and or their trading units. And then BlackRock, which is one of the biggest ones, buyer of debt and everything, authored the bailout plan before there was a crisis. And now it's been hired by the 3 central banks to implement their new plan here. And it's called Going Direct. So if you want to research that, it's interesting here. But that is a financial bailout designed and authored by former central bankers now on the payroll at BlackRock. It's investment manager of $7 trillion in stock and bonds. And the plan was rolled out on August 2019. This is long before this coronavirus stuff at the G7 summit of the central bankers in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, months before the public was aware of any financial crisis. Again, that's over there on that, I forget things so fast, at Wall Street on Parade. That's a good article, though. You should read it there. But and out of all this, though, what Jerome Powell is doing to the Fed, it is illegal for the Fed to buy stocks. They are to buy bonds and stuff for the U.S. government to ensure, as the U.S. government backs these up here, but they are buying junk bonds, everything. And eventually, as the mortgages and stuff collapse, they'll be buying up all that, these lenders, and of course you'll get this new stuff. And I'm more than sure that the interest rates will change as this stagnation turns into inflation and then to hyperinflation. And Americans, my fellow Americans, I hope you're prepared there because it's going to get bloody here because they just don't care about people. It's only the corporations and those big ones, like the big arms industry ones that are coming back first. Those are the most important there because I have other information here about the U.S. and NATO ramping up their threats against China again. They're trying to get all these coalition members of theirs to boycott anything China does. And this was part of this entire thing here, was to destroy the, what do you call that? The Belt Road Initiative. Remember, Italy was the first to sign that. And of course, by doing so, China is no longer buying oil from Iran because the U.S. has got this massive erection towards Iran. And of course, they're still after Venezuela, and this is more that full spectrum dominance. And they don't care how many people they either starve to death or kill. Welcome back, everyone. This is Keith Rogers sitting in for Michael Rivero here on What Really Happened. I have a quick file for you here, and then I'm going to let David take over here and give a little final thing here. But this is what we're headed for, and we have seen this for years now, building up since the 9/11, actually since Oklahoma City. And when you start listening to the details of the Weavers and the Waco and stuff, they have been building on this for years, and this is what we have today. So, police brutality or what, we've got it. There you go. So anyway, that's where we're at today, folks. Yep, that's it. And sadly, they have used the American boys and girls out there in the military to enforce this. And all I can think about is all those lost families and stuff in other countries to be able to take Syria's oil, to take Iraq's oil, and they want Venezuela's oil, and they want Iran's oil, and they want all these those high-valued precious metals and stuff like that underneath the China Sea, which I don't know if you're aware of that. And of course, Venezuela has one of the largest proven oil fields. But this is what it's all about there. And people die just so that the Americans can sit there and say, hey, we have a great military. So, Dave, take it away.
Yeah, it's always about taking what other people have. And if you believe that all this banker bailout and all this stuff propping up the stock market is to benefit the families in the United States and around the world, well, I tell you what, I've got a condo in my beachfront resort complex on the Sun for sale. Real cheap. Just let me know. Good grief. This.
I bet you get scorching hot there.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And there's never, ever a cloudy day, and you can definitely get your suntan real quick. Okay, well, I tell you, it is definitely a messy world out there, and we need to find a way to start getting these divides to go away, heal the divides, and realize we have more in common with each other than we don't. We've got all these common enemies that are trying to exterminate us, basically, in a nutshell.
Right.
And as soon as we can start coming together and working together against our common enemies, the sooner we can put all this stuff to bed and start rebuilding this nation, making this nation great again. And it's going to take a lot of work. We definitely have our work cut out for us. Tomorrow, I've got a special guest in mind, and I'm going to give Gator the day off because he's definitely been dealing with those kidney stones. I definitely feel for him. That's one of the most painful things ever, from what I understand. And he definitely needs some rest and to get back to feeling better on that. So
one more thought, David. I think it was important there at the show here is that start depending more on your community and the people around you, and wave off because the government's is already proven they're not going to be here for you. So stick close to those that you love and those that you know in your community. Okay.
Yeah, that's about what I was going to say. So yeah, what he said. We'll be back tomorrow. Stay safe, everybody.
Yeah, thank you, and also thank for Mike letting me in here. Have a good evening.